In the Fallout 4 wiki, it is thought that Pickman is a reference to Richard Upton Pickman from Pickman's model. This is all a great reason to say it's all inspired by this story, but I found a different path from here. Pickman is a character that stands out in Fallout 4, a composed, seemingly cold individual who is also a serial killer. His history is very unknown, but I think I found some connections that explain who Pickman really is. Grab your tinfoil hat and follow me along for this theory. If you don't know who Pickman is and you're just here for the story, well, he is a character that you find being attacked by raiders in a location, Pickman's Gallery. If you choose to save or kill Pickman, you will get a key to unlock a safe behind a picture called Picnic for Stanley, in which you'll get Pickman's gift, which is way better than a lot of people think because the wounding modifier stacks. But anyway, back on topic. As you go through, you will notice lots of dark artwork on canvas, as well as effigies made out of the corpses. Stretchers with bodies laid out on them with bloody handprints nearby. Even a plunge room that resembles a plunge room from Fallout 3. I have a separate theory about that room. I thought it could be Pickman 2, but I ended up finding a lot more similarities with another story from H.P. Lovecraft. If you want to hear it, let me know. In the Fallout 4 wiki, it is thought that Pickman is a reference to Richard Upton Pickman from Pickman's model. If you haven't read that short story, I'll do a quick summary for you. Richard Upton Pickman, I'm just going to call Richard from now on, is a Bostonian artist and a member of the Boston Art Club. Well, until his membership was revoked for his albeit brilliantly executed form of artwork depicting horrifying images. Written from the perspective of Thurber, who understands why he was ostracized by their peers. However, Thurber saw the brilliance and beauty in his art. Richard invites Thurber to his private, well-hidden studio where he practices his art. During the tour, Thurber sees a grand display of macabre artwork and finds a camera, which Richard explains he uses to capture backgrounds for his paintings. Near the ending of the story, they hear some noises further down in the tunnels below the studio. So Richard pulls out a gun and fires into the tunnel and mentions that the tunnels lead to different grave sites and Salem, so the rats must be hungry and looking for a way to escape. During this fearful moment, Thurber grabbed and rolled a picture that was on one of the easels, and absent-mindedly put the picture into his pocket. It was always wondered why Richard's depictions were so lifelike, until Thurber found the picture in his pocket after leaving the studio, and what he thought was a picture of a background that Richard had taken to use in a future art piece is actually a photograph of the creature that Richard has made in multiple pieces. A vaguely bipedal creature with the hunched back and the taste for human flesh, albeit typically from the dead. These creatures in Lovecraft lore are known as ghouls. Well, Richard Upton Pickman wasn't heard from again, as he fled with his family's version of the Necronomicon. Richard Upton Pickman later comes back into the story where he is depicted as a friendly ghoul, and then nothing after that. This is all a great reason to say it's all inspired by this story, but I found a different path from here. This leads up to short stories by author Ian Davey, who writes 3 stories about the transition to the end of the world by Nyarlathotep. I'm gonna miss. Nyarlathotep. This is brought on by a man named Giorgio who became obsessed with finding the Necronomicon or any book written by someone who has read it and tried to describe what they read. He was able to track a book called Fairy's Notes on the Necronomicon to a small shop, and he was able to purchase it from the shop owner. Pulled deep into his work, his relationship with Lucy, the storyteller, began to suffer with her starting to resent the man. Lucy would still talk to him on the phone about the project he's working on. He is trying to get the funding to turn the notes into a documentary. He explains that he was able to find a man who, based off how this man was acting, had already seen the original book Fairy's Notes is based on, but denied that to be true. It turned out that this man, Stanley Pickman, who I'll now call Stanley, had access to the Necronomicon that is being held in the British Museum. Fast forward a little bit, and Stanley and Giorgio are working together to get funding and succeed pulling in a sizable amount of money from investors in Hollywood. Closer to the release of the film, the advertising was in full swing and the name Giorgio Franceschi was everywhere. Lucy still had no idea why the book made such an impression on people and couldn't understand why the investors were throwing so much money at it. The story heavily implies here that the book seeps into people's mind or consciousness and controls them. Since she has yet to read the book, she was never affected. After the release of the movie, an apocalyptic event happened and began to transition to the bleak world controlled by Nyarlathotep, where Lucy is sure that Pickman was part of all of this and believes him to be high up in the echelons of the new power structure. In the next story of the series, we learn of Glyph, a 12-year-old girl who's trapped in a massive structure created by the old god. In a cell next to her, a man tries to talk to her and we learn this man is Stanley. And after Glyph asks how old he is, he says 26, but cracks a smile as if he told a private joke. Stanley offers to help Glyph escape, and when it comes time to do so, Stanley uses an incantation with Nyarlathotep's name right in the middle of it in order to help the two escape using a creature that eats corpses and uses it to spawn new Shoggoths, which are the creatures that wander around at night hunting humans that are not under the control of Nyarlathotep. And of course, Glyph asks how Stanley knows so much about these creatures and its purpose. And he says, "I'm something of a scientist. It's always been my job to find these things out." With Glyph then remarking that he seems a little young to be a scientist. Upon escaping, Stanley Pickman is knocked unconscious, and being afraid of him, Glyph decides not to wake him and leave. Now, before she leaves, she notices a book bound in black leather and decides to take it with her. The final story, we see Stanley Pickman again, where we learn that he once resembled an old man before the collapse and now seems to have had his age reversed, as if the global catastrophe has somehow rejuvenated him. Explaining the private joke that he told to Glyph, it is revealed that he is an avatar of Nyarlathotep and a messenger of Yog-Sothoth. If you don't know Yog-Sothoth reference in the Fallout universe, it's because it's under the name Ugg-Quothoth, who we hear about originally in the Dunwich building in Fallout 3 and later as a subject of worship from Obadiah Blackhall in the Point Lookout DLC. Now the story ends with Pickman's human form exploding with energy and leaving a creature that had ebony skin that robbed the light of all its power. Nyarlathotep then tore two of the story's characters apart, using their being to tear a physical hole in reality and into the outer darkness where Yog-Sothoth dwells. This creates what is described as a blast that resembles a nuclear explosion that sends a wave of pure darkness that brought desolation and left a melting mass of congealed matter that not a living thing could survive. The story ends with the old gods taking control of Earth, but back to our Pickman from Fallout. I believe that the gallery itself is based off of Richard Upton Pickman's studio that he showed to Thurber. I also believe that Richard is gone after becoming a ghoul. And I believe the Pickman we meet is in fact Stanley Pickman, the avatar of Nyarlathotep, beginning to be a part of this world after the bombs fell. And crazy thought here, Nyarlathotep possibly brought on by Adam, who may be more than just a figure of worship for the children of Adam, but possibly linked to an old god as well, which is why I highlighted the blast given off as reality was torn open for Yog-Sothoth. Along with the painting of Picnic for Stanley being a wink towards his first name, plus the artwork not being the format that Richard used with a drawn background of brick or other material and in the foreground typically an image of a ghoul, which honestly implies it's not the same artist. In the short stories, Stanley Pickman is described to have slightly amber eyes that grew with intensity as more energy came to him, with his eyes appearing more orangish when he met Glyph and glowing when he erupts to open the portal for Yog-Sothoth. I'm not going to FNAF theorist here, but if you look at Pickman's eyes, there certainly is a slight hue of amber peeking through. I believe Pickman might be a way for Bethesda to possibly introduce more H.P. Lovecraft into the following games, so now, could he be both Pickmen smashed together in one reference? Yeah, the similarities could definitely hint that way, but since Stanley Pickman is a name for the avatar of Nyarlathotep, there is one thing that's very important to mention, and it's crazy. Do you know another name for the avatar of Nyarlathotep? Mr. Tittles. Yeah, like the altar to Mr. Tittles at the unmarked location in the South Boston Church. Now, in that room, there is a mixture of dead bodies and ghouls you will have to fight through, but in the middle is an altar presenting a big painting of a cat we assume to be Mr. Tittles. I mean, hell, even the cat that's alive down here could be seen the same way since the ghouls don't attack it. But there is a portrait behind Mr. Tittles, and I believe that man to be Joseph Curwin, who is an old ship merchant with the crazy story bringing him to present day. Want to hear more about that? Let me know. Now, could I be wrong about all of this, and the Picnic for Stanley painting is just a reference to Stanley dropping a cracker on the ground in Vault 101 during a food shortage? Sure. What do you think? I'd love to know. Also, do you want to hear my theory about the plunge room found in Fallout 3, or possibly about the man I believe to be Joseph Curwin? I mean, he was also working to pull in Yog-Sothoth just like Stanley Pickman ended up doing, which of course Yog-Sothoth in the Fallout universe is Ugg-Quothoth. I might just do it anyway, to be honest. This was a lot of fun. Well, thank you for watching. If you watched this far, you are as insane as I am, and I love you for it. Subscribe to the channel and stop by the live stream so we can go full tinfoil hat together and theorize about Fallout and Skyrim. Thanks, killer.